Testing, testing.
Testing. How are you?
I'm doing excellent. Okay, we are on the air. All right, it's Matt Cook here. I am a health and sex researcher with over 700,000 subscribers. You can find more about me at Daily Medical Discoveries, and I have the very famous dating coach, worldwide renowned dating coach, Jonathan Green. How are you, Jonathan?
I'm doing good. I'm great to be here. Excited to spend some time together. Maybe help some people.
Well, we wouldn't want to go that far, but maybe we can hurt people. I mean, maybe our advice is terrible. That's always fun. I have an interesting one for you to start with that I thought was just like uber interesting. This is a guy who says, well, I'm sort of falling for my sister-in-law. Have you ever heard that sort of thing before?
Yes, it happens.
It does
You
happen.
know?
Yeah, so specifically, he just said, I've just been very close just for several years. And so now I just have deep feelings. I would do anything for her. We get along great. Yeah, I've been married and I love my wife and very much. And I've told my sister-in-law that I love her. She will only tell me that she loves me in phone texts. My wife knows that me and my sister are close, but she doesn't worry about me and her sister. Okay. My sister-in-law's divorced. Nothing sexual's happened. What can I do? I don't want to hurt either of them. What do you think you can do?
I mean, I think the best thing you can go for is try to get them to realize you need two wives. Like that seems to make the safest solution.
I agree.
It's
I mean, there's nothing wrong with two wives. It's done all the time.
it's an so let's talk about real possible results. Let's say he gets the ideal result. He switches wives, right? He divorces his wife. He marries the sister. Everyone is going to hate them, right?
Yes.
You're going to lose.
Yes.
Your wife will hate you. Your kids will hate you. You're not going to be able to. So you're going to sacrifice most of your friendships, most of your relationships. You're going to dramatically damage your relationships with your kids.
Everything. Right.
And my experience has been that when you start a relationship off with a cheating, right, that person will cheat again, right? So this woman's already been divorced once. The second divorce is way easier than the first one. I think the statistics are way higher for each subsequent divorce. The first one is at like 1%, 50%. Second one is 80%. Third divorce, it's 90%. So the more marriages you go through, the more likely you are to fail. So additionally, it sounds like there's no signals from the sister-in-law that she's interested. So you're playing
Well,
a
she
high
did say
risk.
she loves him on texts, on phone
Yeah,
texts. That's a signal.
that's hardly a signal. It's just what yeah, that's the same thing. I say I love my kids all the time to them. It's not the same thing. So in English, we only have one word for love, whereas in Greek, there's like 13 for different types of love, like brotherly love, friendship love, romantic love, sexual love. So he's could very easily be misinterpreting the text and going, oh, she's saying love you because she may send that to everyone in their text. And he's now saying this is the big one. And I mean, the long story short is this guy needs to stop it. Okay.
So what happens for me when I read this is I think that he is not happy with his wife. He's not thrilled. And that's the reason why his roving eye has landed on his sister-in-law. Because if you love somebody very, very much romantically and sexually, what you try to do is you try to protect your love against wanting somebody different. So we have we have a woman that comes over to do some work here in the office. I just make sure to stay far away from her. She's extremely attractive, and I stay far away. I don't, look at her. It's like, got to be very careful. Okay, I wouldn't have lunch alone with a very attractive young single woman. There's those things you have to do. So if you're married, you have a sister-in-law, and you find that you're attracted to her, it's fine. You can observe that she's very attractive, but you have to keep your mental distance. The fact that he didn't tells me he's not happy in his marriage, and he's kind of like, why get married then? I mean, it's already, really, really bad news. If he wants to fix this and really doesn't want to hurt anybody, he just has to stop. Just what you said. Absolutely has to stop. But the point is, you have to stop yourself from being in that position in the first place if you really don't want to hurt people. I find life is very complicated, and I don't want it to be hard and complicated at home. It's already hard enough and complicated enough. I don't want to add a whole layer to it. But I think some people crave excitement in their lives, and they want to introduce all this drama, okay? And I think that's what he's doing here. He's introducing a lot of drama. Maybe he has an emptiness in his career and his profession. He's bored. For whatever reason, he's trying to introduce an incredible amount of drama in this marriage, which is a terrible idea. What's your question?
My boyfriend picked up another girl in front of me, and he thinks I'm overreacting.
Picked up
So,
Picked up a girl in front of her, in front of his girlfriend.
yeah, they're a
Wow.
couple in their mid-30s. He smokes, she doesn't. He goes up to the smoking sections, chatting with a girl who's a couple years younger than him and a couple years younger than her, more importantly. They find out they have the same birthday, and they start chatting. She gives him her number. He calls her with the number,
Okay.
and then they end up kissing,
Hmm.
which the girlfriend didn't see, but the boyfriend told her about it on the way home, right?
Hmm.
And she's really upset. And the boyfriend's like, what? So,
Yeah, what's the big
what
deal
do you
here
think?
anyway? What's the big deal?
It's just a little kissing.
Yeah, maybe it's exciting. I mean, it makes her more desire her boyfriend more because another woman wants him. So it could be very, very exciting times in the bedroom, really. I mean, it doesn't have to be that big of a deal, does it? Or does it?
So, I'm a big believer in part of this, right? But you have to know the line of danger and actually committing the crime, right?
Hmm.
There's a huge difference between I could rob that bank if I want to and actually robbing a bank, right? There's a huge difference.
Hmm.
One is a
Right,
crime, one is not.
right.
And this guy got too close to the sun. Like Icarus, he flew too close to the sun, right? Once you are swapping phone numbers, that changes everything, right? The second you're swapping phone numbers, and kissing as well, even though she didn't see it. And I know he told her because he thinks this will make her even more jealous, right? So he's not into the new girl. Probably he's just like, oh, this is gonna fire up my girlfriend, and it did, but I think it went too far. So you
The
have to
phone
be
number
very,
was too far.
and it's possible even the flirting was too far. So
I
it
think so
depends on
too.
your relationship. So
Yeah.
in some relationships, you can flirt a little bit and come back as long as you don't touch or get a phone number or anything and go, wow, that girl was so into me. It's so weird. And that's okay. Like you can get away with that. But again, that's the danger zone. Okay. For some relationships, that's a breaker, and some
And some
relationships it's
couples are
not.
into like fantasizing about another person and she may have put him up to it or, you know, they,
Just
and
demonstrating
that's,
you're demonstrating that other women are still attracted to you, which is a good thing, but you have to be careful with how far you take the demonstration. So definitely getting phone numbers, hugging, kissing is definitely too far. Possibly flirting is too far. So I wouldn't do that. I think that's too dangerous. Was I might go, why does that girl keep looking at me? To me, that's as far as I'll go. To plant a little jealousy. It's like I wish everyone would stop staring at me. I'm a person, right? I have a human being and thoughts and emotions. I'm more than just something to look at. Is as far as I'll go. But as far as actually flirting in front of her, he might also think my girlfriend is there watching, not participating in the conversation, but she's in the room, she can see us, and that makes me in the clear, but obviously not. So when you're
well, they
thinking
didn't
about,
discuss this, obviously. If they had discussed it, you know, and it was like part of their deal, it'd be fine, you know,
I mean,
and
yeah,
it could be exciting in their relationship if that's
it
what they're
definitely wasn't.
into. Yeah, it
So it
wasn't in
definitely was
there.
a big
Yeah.
old surprise. So she's
It's
very
kind of
disappointed.
shocking to me that a guy would do that if it wasn't something that was already cleared up with his girlfriend. I'm shocked that someone would do that, honestly. It's just so outlandish, to me. So out there. So it's rather interesting. I would have to say that there's a relationship immaturity there that should be a red flag for this woman in general. Would you agree?
Yeah, you have to have a conversation about part of it is seeing how he reacts. If you say, listen, it went too far. I don't I don't mind you talking to other people. Once you're swapping numbers or once it gets flirtatious, you need to pull back and see
Yeah.
how he reacts. What's interesting is a lot of people will go, hey, it's no big deal. And then you know that you're definitely not a good fit. So sometimes you have to push and see before you just immediately pull the ripcord. Just see, is this relationship really messed up? Or does he, when I explain myself, kind of see my wavelength? But I get the feeling he'll be like, it's no big deal. I'm just floating in front of you, da 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 da.
All right. Well, I have something that I wanted to discuss with you. It's somebody asked about. He said, basically, I went to online dating. Um, I went to it. I used to pick up women, and then I went to online dating. And I thought that all my life I've all focused on like chemistry, And so I've had some sort of bad relationships because I was just chemistry and, we weren't compatible. So I thought, well, let me start my dating now um, with compatibility. So I did that, but I end up like just asking her a bunch of questions and it's like we're in an interview. There's no chemistry. It's not fun. It doesn't get anywhere. Okay. So then I just said, I got to drop this crap. And I just went back to fun, having fun and all that. And everything started to work a lot better, like it was when I used to just randomly pick up girls. What do you think? Is there any difference between dating for chemistry or compatibility, do you feel like?
Yeah, dating for compatibility is the best way to end up in the friend zone, as this person discovered. It's that it's most marriages are not built on a foundation of parity or similarities or commonalities or rapport. It's like, oh, we like the same movies, so we got married. That's insane. There's this idea that we get from television movies sometimes, like, oh, we need to have a lot in common. The more we have in common, the better the marriage will be. And this is a lesson I learned when I was very young from someone who's like, he was like, why would I marry someone who's like me? That sounds really boring. So you want to be with someone who's actually different to you so that they can surprise you and say unique things and have unique perspective, and that every day could be interesting. Because I already know what I want to do. Imagine if every single decision I make, my wife just always says yes. She always wants to watch the same movie as me, watch the same television shows as me. Then why is she there? Right? She's just that is an accessory, right? That's a person that's barely a part of your life. They're just there while you're living the exact same life you would with or without them. That's not interesting. There's no excitement. That's not a marriage. It's not a partnership. So compatibility is a misnomer, and this is where a lot of guys falter. Compatibility is sometimes called comfort, which is like, let's get to know each other. And when you create compatibility before you create attraction, which is there's a chemistry between us, that's how the formula for the friend zone. That's the exact formula for a friend zone. And that's why he was discovering that it feels weird, because compatibility doesn't really matter. There are very few questions where the person's answer will actually affect whether or not you want to date them. Nobody really cares what your job is, right? There are very few jobs you could say where the other person might go, oh, I don't want to date you because of it. And that's the point, is that why we ask about this stuff. We ask about things that we don't care about because we don't know any better, and we think that we're supposed to. Oh, we have to like a certain percentage of things in common. We have to like a certain percentage of movies and books and stuff. When is the last time you co-read a book? Like, you're both reading the same book at the same time? That never happens. So that's the important thing. He's on the right wavelength. Chemistry is definitely more important.
Yeah, chemistry is super, super important. But I think that a lot of people mistake hot sex for what's going to become a long term relationship. And I have to say that I think a lot of people who get into a bad relationship ignored these red flags because of the sexual chemistry. So it seems like it's a huge issue for people that want a long term relationship. I think it has to start with chemistry. And then the point of an evolution of a relationship is that it becomes compatibility over time, because the initial fireworks sort of die down inevitably. And then they're replaced by this love and companionability that takes some time to develop. And if that doesn't develop, it's probably not a good match. So it starts with chemistry. And then I would argue compatibility and companionability become super, super important. And I think people lose sight of that in the initial honeymoon phase of the relationship.
Yeah, you just have to go through the phases in the right order.
Yes. What's the next one?
My husband's no longer attracted to me, so I don't want him in the delivery room anymore.
Oh, no. Is this the postal service? Are they both they were in the delivery room, or?
Oh no, she's about to have a baby.
This is the hospital
She's
delivery room, yeah.
Since they've gotten together, she's put on 40 pounds. Part of it's being pregnant, right? So she put on weight, then she got pregnant and put on more weight. And the intimacy is decreasing. They're very close to having the baby. And she's like, oh, this guy is not that into me. You know what? And her thing, and it's not crazy, she's like, I don't want to see me at my grossest, right? Because I've been in the delivery room and it is not appealing. A lot of gross stuff happens. She's like, I don't want him to see me poop myself and make a mess and blood going everywhere and seeing a baby come out of me, because then they'll be like, it will totally kill the attraction. So,
did it kill the attraction for you and your wife when you saw the baby being delivered? Oh, you've had a number of babies. I've had two. You've had
where
four.
I live, you're not allowed to be in there. I actually only want I've only been in there for, of the 4 kids, I've only been there for one time because the doctor,
Okay.
we paid a lot. We had to pay extra for me to go in.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And yeah, so normally I just go to sleep, and when I wake up, there's a baby there. I'm like, oh, this is not that
It's the
bad.
best
Like
thing.
having a
That's
baby
the
is
best
not
thing.
that
Yeah, I
hard.
mean, what's
This
the
is
big deal
smooth.
about childbirth? I don't understand. It's
And
no
whatever.
problem.
It's horrible.
So I was
It's
there for both deliveries, and I mean, there completely the whole time, seeing everything. And some people say like, "Oh, it's a beautiful experience, birth," and I suppose in a sense it is, but I just found that to me it was like clinical. I sort of changed hats, and I had my clinical hat on. What do I need to do to help? What's going on? What decisions have to be made? Because we had two fairly difficult births in some ways. So I saw everything, participated in everything. It didn't gross me out really because it was just to me like a doctor. Did you ever wonder how gynecologists can look at women's parts all day and then go home and be excited by their girlfriend's private
so
parts?
have you ever been at
Well,
the end of the day, right? Like you're like, oh, if I have to look at one more, right? Like the last thing you want to do, like the last thing a massage therapist wants to do, go home and give their partner a massage. So I think that
mhm.
I sometimes think the doctor's like, oh, the last thing I want to see when I get home is another one of these.
But that's
So
not true because it's a clinical experience where you have a clinical hat on. It's like a part of your brain. And then you come home and it's a different part. It's your lizard brain or your reptile brain. So I don't feel that it ruins anything for a lot of people. And if he's not comfortable with it, he shouldn't do it. But I think there's a lot of pluses to being in the delivery room because there are decisions that may have to be made, and you could just ignore them and let other people make the decisions, but they could have catastrophic consequences. So I think that you should be there. I had a friend who was a dentist, and he was going to get a root canal and painful extraction, from a rear tooth, and I said, well, you're going to be under, right? He goes, oh, no way. He says, I'll never go under. I want to know what they're doing at all times. And if they drop an instrument down my throat, I want to know it. So I like this attitude of like, let me get in the delivery room. Let me see what's going on. I'm not going to let other people make those decisions. And my wife or the girlfriend, she's not in a position to make decisions when she's having a baby. So who's going to protect her, your interests and your baby's interests? You have to do it. So I think this is part of being a man today, stepping up to the plate. And you have to be an advocate for anybody who is inducted into the medical system. If you just let them be inducted in and you just let everyone else make decisions, a lot of bad stuff's going to happen. And then they're going to cover it up. So I've seen too many experiences of babies that have been deprived of oxygen, all sorts of things. You need to be alert. You need to be there. It's a critical thing. Why doesn't the guy want to be there? Or is it the girl that doesn't want him there?
he doesn't want him there because she doesn't want to gross him out. I think
Oh
the
yeah,
answer
it's a
is,
mistake.
here's the secret. It's about where you stand.
Yeah.
So you can, there's two choices. You can stand beside her or hold her hand and everything is
So
under the
you're not,
sheet.
in other words, you're not at her legs looking into
Right.
her.
Or you could be staring down the barrel of the baby coming out.
Yeah,
And I did not do that position, right? So I'm there
right.
watching everything happen, but I'm
Then you
not
see a baby magically appear, and then oh, here it is.
yeah. Well, I mean, it's very violent. It's very loud. It's very horrible. There's a lot of sewing afterwards. It's horrible. It's not a
There can
beautiful
be an episiotomy where there's cutting. There can be, oh, we
yeah.
can't get the baby out. We may have to, let's try suction, and then putting a suction on the baby's head.
Yeah, it's
Uh,
horrible. It's really violent
and then
and it's
meanwhile, your
not
girlfriend or wife is really, really, really having a hard time of it. Of course, you feel terrible, and she's in terrible pain and discomfort.
yeah.
But I think you have to be there. You have to do it. It's part of life. You have to
But
be there
also
to
like
advocate for what needs to be done.
you're not supposed to be like super horny for each other right before the baby comes or right afterwards. Like that's going to be a dry
No,
season no matter
it
what.
is.
So
It
this
absolutely
idea
is.
like you have enough time to kind of forget it that like, oh, you're going to go through a period of where you're not going to be intimate no matter what because she's
Right.
recovering and you have a baby that's going to scream every time you try and touch each other anyway. So it's just part of the game. I think that I understand where she's coming from, but I don't think that it will
Okay, what
affect
about
the
sex? Isn't it
relationship.
funny when they're like a month or two old and you're having sex and like it doesn't matter because they're only 1 or 2 months old. Like they're in bed. Who cares?
Well, no, it's because they scream in the middle of it. They start crying,
I
right? Because
know,
they need
I
food or
know. They
whatever.
do. Of
That's the
course they
problem.
do. Of course they do. That's a weird question. I really think you have to be so careful nowadays when anybody is that you love is is in the medical system. So here's one. My wife had an affair with a guy at work. Okay, now, the word affair, what does that mean to you? Does that mean that they're having sex, or does that mean that they're writing love letters like they used to in the 19th century? What do you think affair means?
It means that they went into the office supply closet and a penis went into a vagina.
Right. So that's what I thought too. He said, okay, my wife had an affair with a guy at work. I'm broken about it. She said that it just sprouted out and it was because of me, my lack of emotional connection. It's my fault. Okay. Now, honestly, I've always wanted more affection, intimacy from her. But she says she just doesn't feel emotionally connected because of me. So, look, she dismissed this affair like it's not a big deal. Am I missing something? Okay. Now, I had her take a lie detector test. No sex happened. Just kissing and cuddling.
Wait, you can't skip past that. What's that conversation like?
Oh, by the way, I brought her into my CIA secret office
Yeah, I
in
need
Langley.
you to put this on your finger, wrap this around your arm, put this on your head.
Lie detector, very convincing. Psychopaths can fool a lie detector. You should tell this guy that. She, to me, the bizarre parts of this are, okay, she claims he's emotionally disconnected. That's why she had the affair. It's his fault she had the affair. He says she's the one that's not connected. And then they call it an affair when they haven't supposedly had to me, a sexual affair. But obviously there's affection being exchanged.
There are things you can say, right, that even if you don't have intimacy, like you can say, women feel this way more than men. Is like it's worse for you to fall in love with someone else than to sleep with someone else, right? Because that's a bigger betrayal.
Right.
So she might say, I love him, or send like secret messages. Like there's this message I knew a guy's wife was sending numbers, and so she would just say 143. Do you know what that stands for?
No.
It's a one letter word, 4-letter word, 3-letter word. It stands for I love you.
Oh,
so,
okay.
And it's like,
that's worse. I mean, look, a lot of guys will go, and I have a married friend. He goes to the massage parlor. He gets more than a massage. There's a happy ending involved. His wife doesn't know about it. He's been doing this for a decade or two. I don't know. I can't see that there's any harm in that because he's not emotionally interested in anybody else but his wife. Well, I don't see that as the same thing at all.
Is he always going back to the same person?
No. It's just the thing he does. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, really, it's not a big deal. I mean, she probably doesn't have a big she doesn't have much of a sex drive. He has one. They don't have it's not the ideal thing, but I can understand that because it's not breaking up the marriage. In this case, she goes to have a quote affair. She's emotionally interested in someone else. That's the problem. It's not the physical thing. It's the fact that they're blaming each other for lack of intimacy, lack of emotional connection. So this relationship has to be fixed in that sense, or else there's no relationship.
Yeah, I don't like this trick of where I cheat on you and it's your fault.
It's your fault. Yeah, exactly.
That's like the definition of victim blaming is you made me do it and it's your fault. Like you shouldn't have made it so easy. You shouldn't have trusted me.
You didn't make me emotionally connected. Of course, I had no choice. It's your fault. And then he's saying, oh, yeah, it's not my fault. It's her fault.
Yeah, that's a game a lot of people will play. I know there's all these fancy names now for like manipulation where they call it gaslighting. There's like 50 other names for things, but it's like just making someone feel confused and trying to use tricky words. But at the end of the day, she did something bad. But she obviously wants to save the marriage because she took a lie detector. Like, I don't know. Let me ask you this. I think this is a good question. Would you, if your wife thought something was going on, would you take a lie detector to save your marriage?
Yes.
Interesting.
I would do anything to save my marriage.
But do you think the act of having to take the lie detector would actually, it's in and of itself, damage your marriage? Because it's like, oh, she doesn't trust me so much that I have to take a lie detector.
No, not at all. Because she's already betrayed this trust. She's already gone as far, who knows how far, with someone else.
I mean, if your wife asked you, right, your wife said to you, you have to take a lie detector to save our marriage, even though you haven't done anything wrong.
I would do it because I would think, and then I'd probably consider what kind of meds she might be on or what her therapist is telling her. Because when people are fed lies and all kinds of misleading stuff from when they're in therapy. Have you noticed that? And who knows where she's getting that information from. If she thought I was having an affair and I'm not, she's probably there's some mental instability or somebody's feeding her some lies.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, I don't want to be wired up. I don't know what they're going to ask me, right? It's like, hey, that wasn't on the list. Like, that's, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Okay, what do you think about this one? My wife wants to divorce me to marry her ex. My wife was dating a guy for 6 years from the Middle East. When he was 30, his parents were like, hey, you have to get married. This white woman in America doesn't count. You have to come back to your home country. And of course, there's a lot of money at play because this comes from like an oil family. And so he says to her, the family says, listen, you have to come to our country for a year,
Sure.
become a Muslim, all yada yada, and then we'll decide. And then if you're willing to do all that, then you can marry him in 1 year, right?
Yeah.
And she didn't want to do that. She didn't want to go live in the Middle East. But now she got married to someone else. And five
Hmm.
years later, she's like, you know what? I want to divorce you to
You
go
know,
be his second wife.
why would she need to get a divorce? I mean, couldn't she just, okay. Yeah, I guess she would have to. Um, I don't understand this problem at all.
So yeah,
You know
if
how
a
people
woman
go to Facebook now and they go look at some old, they call it like an old flame, and they start reigniting something that might have happened in high school. That's kind of like, and it just happens a lot now. And I know several people who have had problems in their marriage, or sometimes it's just that someone's died or divorced, and then they end up trying to get things going. And it's always they go back to their list, the old list, the list of people
I
that were in
find
their
that
life 30 years ago.
I find that
That's what
very
she's doing.
strange.
Well, that's what she's doing.
Well,
Yeah.
she's already talked to the other guy and talked to
Yeah.
the new wife, and they've
Sure.
already agreed that she'll be the second wife. And
Okay.
I'll tell you what, this woman is in for one heck of a surprise.
She's going to move to the Middle East and be a second wife. Do you think? Is that what she's saying?
Yeah, that's what she
That'd be
wants
a
to do. She's
trip.
like, hey, she
Okay.
says to the husband, she goes, you can keep everything because my new husband's super rich. And this guy's like, what should I do? I'm like, sign those papers, dog. This marriage is over, right? And
Yeah.
she's making a terrible decision,
Right.
and she's
She
going to
should
come
start
back.
fresh. Should start fresh with somebody. She shouldn't do that. She never knows when she goes to the Middle East what's going to happen. The culture's so different. The family's not there. She could have a very dangerous time. Really, it could be very, very bad for her safety, physically and mentally. So I think that's a really, really bad idea. You know what they call isolating somebody in order to indoctrinate them? That's what this feels like to me.
Yeah, I mean, it's not the woman posting the thing, but she's making a terrible decision. But this guy, there's nothing you can do. She's gone so far that she's met and talked to the other wife to like, hey, can I come be the second? She blew her chance to be the top. By the way, like the first wife
Number
has the
two wife.
power.
Number two wife.
You're
Now,
now
right?
not the
Oh, is
top
that
dog.
right?
You
It's,
blew your
it's in
chance to be top
by
dog.
order of seniority. Like they don't
Yeah.
use. Okay. They don't use ability. It's just seniority, huh? Okay. I didn't know that. I've
No,
never had two wives.
so
I don't know how that works.
oh well, yeah, because it's just it's in. I mean, maybe because he knew her first or whatever, but no, it's usually the order of marriage is the order of dominance, right? Because usually the reverse order is the order of beauty, right? So the youngest one, the fourth one's going to be the youngest, and I guess the most beautiful. I don't know exactly, but that's kind of the idea that she'll be the youngest. So it's like you marry one woman at 20, and then when you're 30, you marry another 20-year-old. When you're 40, you marry another 20-year-old. When you're 50, you're another 20-year-old. So one
So
of
the
your wives is
50-year-old
50,
or
30,
the sing
20. Yeah,
whatever, she's the one that runs the household. She runs the girls. She
exactly.
runs the wives. Yeah, I could see that actually. That's the way I would do it too. But there's also the
Right.
idea
Like,
of
yeah,
having
but it
wives
doesn't
where
be
it's
her.
merit. You could have like the number one wife based on merit. You could have them have certain contests of physical and mental accomplishments, and
Feats of
then whoever
strength.
comes out on top. Yeah, strength.
I
Um,
don't believe this culture is
co-
big on meritocracy. It's
okay.
not
Okay,
my
it's about seniority.
understandings.
Okay. Yeah, it's like unions. It's about seniority. Whoever's first, been there the longest. Okay. Yeah, I would just again, I really it's a silliest. It's amazing what people come up with sometimes. But it's very, very alluring to go back to your list, your backlist, and start trying to drum things up with somebody. And it can work okay, but it also could be a big mistake because it's never the way you remember it. You've got to start fresh with somebody. If you used to know them, it's like now it's a whole new ball game. You've all had your life now, and you're different people. So here's one for you. I want to ask your opinion about this. So many men, they say, can't read the signals women give them when the woman is attracted to the man. And women have told me this many, many, many times. Okay. So sometimes people will say if a woman likes you, she'll do something obvious that as a man you'll notice. But it doesn't seem like that. It just, a lot of guys miss these signals. What do you think's going on here? Are women giving signals that are too subtle? And I think they are. I think they're hidden signals, is what we call them, that they do, and then they think that they're broadcasting loud and clear, but they're not. What do you think?
So I've been thinking about this a lot lately because I think this is an issue where I struggled a lot when I was younger in that I misunderstood what a signal was. So all of my training about what a signal was wrong. So I was using a bad code book. And I think it comes from two places. But I think the biggest place, I think the best answer is overstimulation. So when they're showing signals in movies, they show a larger than real life. So you watch a movie and you go, oh, that's what a signal looks like. Here's the biggest signal. I'll do it to you and tell me if you recognize this. See, it works instantly. That's a very uncommon signal, but it's the most overt signal. The look down, look up, smile. If a woman does that to you, and I've had a woman do that to me, and then I walked over and she goes, why did you walk over here? And I was like, you sent the bat signal. So you never know, no matter what's going on. So what you have to do as a man is, first
Maybe
of all,
she did give you the signal, but she changed her mind the moment you approach her and open your mouth.
wow. So I'm attractive from far away and far away from attractive.
I mean, I don't know. People it's a fickle thing.
Yeah, but that's exactly it, is that you
I don't really know.
have
I don't like the guy that I brought over here. I think I'm going to not, no, what are you
it
talking
happens.
about?
I caught the wrong fish. So she could have also been shooting those eyes at the guy next to me. So I believe it's connected to the prevalence of media and the prevalence of adult media. So the signals you're used to seeing, because do you remember how in a movie like in the 50s and 40s, they would never actually show a murder? And they would never even, or how about this? They would never show people sleeping together. They would show two people walk into a bedroom and then it would fade to black. And you would know what it meant.
The African Queen, you know, that one with Bogart and Hepburn? That's the classic where they're going down the river in the boat. And then you can tell when they've had sex, and she has this look on her face when she comes out of the cabin, but they never show anything. They just go in there together. The next moment, it's morning, and she's got this, cat who got the cream look on her face when she gets out of the cabin. That's what you're talking about, right?
Right. But now it's more and more and more extreme. And even on television shows, it used to be they would, for a while when I was a kid, they would just show women topless. Then they started showing bottoms. Now they show guys. You can see guys. I can't tell you how many actors I've seen. Everything they have, either guys. I'm like, I don't need to see all these actors.
Did you see the South Park that they had on Paramount Plus? They have these crap specials or South Park, but they show. I guess it's the Integrity Farms. What's his Stan's dad? His genitals, and he's playing with the saw. I show everything. It's a cartoon, but
so I believe that because subtlety doesn't work in movies anymore, they keep going more and more extreme. So we're thinking, oh, if I see it in a movie, that's why. It's the same reason like comedy jokes that were funny or tricks that were subtle, like all the movies from Hitchcock, all the tricks from Hitchcock movies. You watch North by Northwest now and you know everything that's going to happen because everyone's copied those tricks. And what happens is we are so overstimulated, right? Between social media and bright lights and advertising everywhere and like all advertising is sexual, so that you no longer notice. I think women are actually doing normal signals, but they just haven't adapted to how over the top everything else is. So I'll give you an example of this. I once saw a woman's profile on a dating app where she worked at Victoria's Secret, and her profile was her sitting down next to 4 Victoria's Secret angels. And I was like, that's probably the stupidest thing I've ever seen a person do. Because he goes, supermodel, me, supermodel,
How do you look
supermodel.
in comparison? Yeah, you want to sit
Why
next
would
to
you?
ugly people. Yeah.
There's no worse place for me to be standing than between, like, you know what I mean? And it's
that's
such
why women who really want to find somebody out and they're on the prowl, they bring their uglier girlfriend with them.
Yeah, you don't bring 4 supermodels so that you get completely ignored. But that's the example of this. So for a woman, if you want to, it's very hard to tell a woman to send a signal that's overt enough that a guy will see it, because the difference is so big. So eye contact, I used to think to send the come hither signal, it took 30 seconds of eye contact.
I think it's about 3 or 4 seconds, really.
It's 2 to 3,
Two.
right?
Yeah.
So
In
I was
other
off
words,
by a
when you're
factor of 10.
focused on someone's eyes for 2 or 3 seconds without looking away, that's what you're talking about. That's the
Yeah.
signal.
But we
Yeah.
think, oh, I need 30 seconds. So for a woman to jump and go, oh, I have to do a 10 times bigger signal. So the problem is really more on the men's side. We have to stop overstimulating. You have to stop watching adult content. You have to start talking to people. And what you can even do is be with a girl you're friends with and say, hey, anytime you like a guy, tell me, and I'm going to watch what you do because I want to see what your signals are. And
Hmm?
you can just watch signals in the wild. That's how I learned it, is by actually
Hmm.
watching people in real interactions. And you have to spend a lot of time and just be proactive. Go, I want to learn this skill set.
Yeah, that's right. People don't like to think about it as a skill because they want to believe that there's a act natural and you can just be yourself and all that. But you really want to get good at dating and recognizing those signals. And this is very surprising because men like to think that they actually have the initiative and you ask the woman out traditionally, but actually women are always the ones that give the first signal. Always. And then the man recognizes it or he doesn't. So you should get good at recognizing it. What's the next question?
My family wants me to break up with my girlfriend because of how she reacted to my brother's prank. This guy's
Okay.
27, his girlfriend's
Okay.
22, and his brother's 22. The brother, for some reason, does tons of pranks to his older brother's girlfriend when she's asleep.
Because he likes
Shaving
it.
cream on the hand, all of that kind of. The girlfriend does not like it, by the way. So
No,
on
of
New
course
Year's
not.
Eve
Of course not.
or a holiday or a party or something, the girlfriend goes to sleep, and he told the brother, he goes, leave her alone. He puts on like a mask, goes in the room, scares her while she's asleep. She wakes up and she beats him.
This happens so often. I mean, you get so many of these stories.
I know we get this question every week. What do you do if you sneak? Here's the thing. If you sneak attack someone while they're asleep,
Yeah.
anything can happen because you don't know how long
You're
it
in
could be.
very dangerous ground.
It could, so
Very dangerous
you might
ground.
think, oh, she'll know it. She'll wake up, be scared for 1 second, know it's me. She could go a full 60 seconds, still not, especially wearing a mask. So I have worked
Maybe
with
she
guys.
could know some moves. She could have a hidden knife. She could,
So-
know some moves, and all of a sudden, he's down and he's, not getting up.
Well, she thinks she's being attacked, right? She thinks this is it.
Yeah.
It's go time.
Makes sense.
So the fact that his brother got out alive, I think he's very lucky. Because I've known guys who are in the military in elite units. You wake them up by throwing a spoon from across the room. Okay, you don't come over and do a leg shake or shake someone's arm or
Right.
touch their face unless you hate that arm.
Right.
Like if you want to lose the arm, I guess you do that. So
Right.
you
Yeah.
never know when someone's going to overreact. So the fact that he's wearing a mask and messing with it. Listen,
Yeah.
I think a good prank is fine, but also it's not your
No.
girlfriend.
No,
She
no,
doesn't like it. It's very
way-
weird. But the fact
He's attracted to his brother's girlfriend. That's
he's
why
always
doing
making
it. And it's
yeah,
a
of
very
course.
immature.
He's got
course.
something wrong with him, and the fact that the family's like, "Hey, you need to break up with her because she beat up your brother." You're in
They
your
need some
20s.
He needs boundaries for his brother. He's some boundaries for his family. He needs to launch out of this family, visit them on Sundays, learn how to use his own discretion and his own thoughts about what to do and not to do and not listen to his family. 'Cause
How
they're
about this?
screwed up.
Your brother was in a bedroom with your girlfriend, and you didn't know. You have a problem
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
So, I mean, let's just imagine. Let's just think this. What would I do if I walked into the bedroom and someone was standing over my wife wearing a mask?
I might kill them.
Yeah. Even if he goes, "It's your brother," I go, "No problem." That doesn't change anything. It's, you know what I mean? You've still committed the original sin. Like, it doesn't matter what you're wearing a mask. You're in here. Of course, something's gonna
Yeah.
happen to you. So
Yeah.
it's hard to
He
blame
got
the
off lucky with
girlfriend.
his brother, actually.
The fact
Yeah.
that you can blame, it's very weird that his family blames the girlfriend who
Yeah.
listen, it's one
Messed
thing to
up.
prank someone when they're awake and be like, "Hey, she was asleep and overreacted." Like, that's insane. So
Look, we don't pick our families, okay? We don't pick our mothers, our fathers, our sisters, our brothers. We pick, our girlfriends, our wives. So that's the point. You've got to move away from the orbit of these people, okay? Because they're really messed up. That's what I
right.
could say. And they're still your family, but that doesn't mean you have to listen to what they're telling you. That's the point. Okay.
I've got one that you're gonna
Okay.
love because this one's
Okay.
crazy.
Yeah.
My new boyfriend left poo stains on the couch. Do I
God,
tell him?
oh no. Oh no. Oh no.
They're getting
Oh, no.
frisky.
Now, isn't it normal to have a towel down below your butt when you're sitting on, that's the hygienic thing to do, right? If you're naked?
Oh, I'm sorry. Do you sit on couches naked? No. I
Well, I might. But I always would have a towel down.
Yeah, I mean, it's so he she's like putting all these things. It took her 40 minutes to clean it. That's a tough clean, and it's
That's
like
just disgusting. It's disgusting.
well,
How
here's
much
the thing.
attraction can there be this way with this guy that leaves poo stains? I mean, that ruins it.
Well, he just had some type of surgery down there, which he waits a long time to mention. Way down there. I'm like, well, that's kind of the key point. If someone just had a surgery,
They should have towels down there. That's all. I mean, they should have towels, and you can get
well,
like a liner that's
He d-
waterproof, like for pets. People get these for their pets who get incontinent, and they still get on the furniture.
well, I don't
They
know.
feel
You
soft
don't
and everything,
know.
but the back of them is completely like
Yeah.
impervious to moisture.
You do like a grandparent's house where the couch is completely covered
Yeah.
in the plastic.
Yeah, that was my grandmother's house.
So that's
So
everyone's
you've been there.
grandmother. So I think that what she should do is when he comes over next, he's gonna go, something's different about your house, and he realizes everything's covered in plastic.
By the way, the good part were the walkways, the plastic strips that you had to walk on over the carpet.
Yeah, this is where you're allowed to
That was
walk.
the-
Do not.
That's only where you're allowed to walk.
Yeah. I think it's very interesting that she's like, do I tell him? The answer is no. By the way,
No, don't tell him. It's just one of those things that happens.
she's not
Nothing he can
the fact
control.
that she's like so chill about it is kind of crazy. She's like, I cleaned it up. Should I tell him? And there's no
No,
way you
don't
can
tell
tell
him.
him that's not horrible. And it sounds like if it wasn't for he just had a surgery or something down there, then I'd be like, listen, maybe break up with this guy because you're in your 20s, right? Like
Well,
I don't think I've ever pooped a couch, and I've had a lot of wild experiences. I've definitely thrown up in weird places, peed in
well,
weird places.
he might have had a gerbil or something, and it kind of messed him up. Gotta give him, anything could happen, right?
I mean, it was definitely. She's like, well, our country doesn't have any bidets. Like that's what it's like. Don't focus on. That's not what happened
No
here.
bidets. In this country, there are no bidets.
So
My
that's why
gosh.
he did it. But they were definitely.
You know what? It's a great opportunity you could go into the bidet business. You'd make a fortune.
So she says like they were being intimate. I guess she was on top, and it's like maybe just if I was the guy, I'd be like, listen, you're that good. When I finish, when I climax, it goes out both ends. Just like big explosion. It's a compliment. Like that's the way you're out of this.
Anyway,
I
there
guess.
should be a, let's face it, there should always be a towel down there. That's okay. All right. So my son, he's in his late 20s. He tells me that, I'm not interested in marriage. There are no women worth marrying. Now, he kind of got this from me because I have a great marriage. His mother and I get along great. Okay. But he says reality today is different and I wouldn't understand. It's a different time, a different place. He's not interested in putting himself out there in a culture that glorifies divorce, adultery, and man hate, as he puts it. He's fit, he's successful, he's a good candidate. Can anybody not ever meet his standards? What should I do? So, your kids aren't that old, mine are.
So
But what do you think?
the son didn't say anything about standards, right? What he's talking about
No,
is
he didn't say anything. He just said that
dad misinterpreted
he's
it.
not interested in putting himself out there in a culture that glorifies divorce, adultery, and man hate. That's what the son said.
So here's a couple of things that are true. Divorce is predominantly anti-man. The dad is you're less, and it's
You're
switched.
screwed.
It used to be the other way around, right? It used to be like 50 or 60 years ago, the dad would always get the kids. Now it's like you never get the kids. There's guys who have to pay paternity on kids that aren't theirs. I've seen where dads have gone to jail for 20 years for a kid that wasn't even theirs. And here's the crazy part. If you don't pay child support as a man, you go to jail. But if you pay the child support and she doesn't spend any of it on the kid, no one cares. So that's an uneven system, right? So what he's talking about is very much about America, and Canada's even worse. So, I mean, that's why I left the country. I would never get married in America because it doesn't matter. You can spend 50 years building a business, be married for 6 weeks, and then she can divorce you and get half of everything that predated. And or I've seen in Canada a guy happen and they said we're giving her 90% because you can make it back. And
Yeah, there's somehow that's how they interpret gender equality by screwing over the man.
yeah,
To
and
me, that's not exactly equal. It's unequal.
And if you talk about
institutional.
And if you talk about men's rights, everyone acts like you're a monster when you're just talking about equality. People don't believe in it. And even when some famous women go through divorces and it's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe her stupid husband's going to get half the stuff. That's unbelievable. And it's like, well, isn't that what you guys want? So knowing, and the thing is, it's really big business, right? The tons of lawyers and judges make money off of divorces. It's a very profitable business. Divorce is very profitable for everyone except for the couple getting divorced.
Right.
Both people in the
Right.
marriage end up poorer. They pay their lawyers and how much they pay the judge and stuff. So he's not saying something crazy. I certainly understand the divorce laws have got.
Well, the thing that but he does say, he said there are no women worth marrying. And I understand not wanting to be married for the reasons that you mentioned. However, I also don't understand it because I always wanted to have children and have a wife and have a house and a relationship and build something, you know. And like, what happened to this young man that he doesn't feel the same way? What happened to him? How did he get so
Well,
injured
he's using a
and hurt that he
philosophical
doesn't feel that
system,
way?
right? Which is like, let's weigh the risk of something bad happening with the impact. So like, it's the difference between a 1% chance of a nuclear war and a 50% chance of 100 people dying, right? So you're kind of doing a mathematical equation. It's a form of, it's not called practicalism, it's called something else, but it's a form of like critical thinking. So he's looking at, well, let's say I marry someone that's the perfect woman. There's a 1% chance that she could devastate my life. And so,
By the way, isn't it possible that he's not really
yeah, that's an
attracted to women?
interpretation. I mean, the real answer is just go to a country where the laws are the way you want. That's what I did. Just get your passport, be a bro. Like, that's the real answer.
Yeah, I had a brother that got a vasectomy, and I asked him why, and he said, "I don't want to bring children into this world." He said that when we were growing up, it was so terrible that I was scarred for the rest of my life, and I feel like I don't ever want even a chance of someone that comes into this world having to go
I
through
know
what I went
people
through.
like that. There's a lot of people now getting like climate change vasectomies. They're worried about things that are invisible, right? Like it's not a thing you can see.
Yeah, they're intangible, invisible, and maybe even not real. So YouTube will put out a climate change is definitely
And another
proven.
person
Here's
gets a vasectomy when they
link
read
to
that.
the science. Yeah. So okay, if we take it at face value, he's basically saying that he's not going to get married, doesn't want to raise kids. So maybe he just wants to hook up and fool around, and maybe that'll change when he's in his 30s. You never know. It's certainly not a big deal. He's a man. He can wait as
Yeah, I
long as he
mean, I
wants to
felt that
still
way at
change his
30.
mind. If it's a daughter,
At 30, even on my
different
first date,
story.
I told my wife
Yeah,
I'm never
well,
getting
I didn't,
married.
but
Yeah.
why would I want to give up all this? Why would I want to settle down with one person when I can have a bunch? You know. But of course, if it's I don't want to worry about it. I think that this guy's way too wrapped up in what his son has said because, you know, he's got plenty of time. Don't worry about it. No clock runs
So,
for a man. Actually, you know, I think people do their better. Men probably do better work as they get older. They're more successful. They're more powerful, more authoritative. You know, it's not a big deal for this guy. The son. I mean,
yeah,
you know, you can always
there's
find
no
women.
rush. I got one that's interesting. My wife and I are arguing about her father moving in with
Okay.
us. So they're 40, father's
Okay.
65. The father is just broke, right? Like he's hit some bad stuff happened over the last few years because he
Yeah.
couldn't work
Yeah.
during the 2 years of lockdowns. Obviously, that crushed a lot of people. And he's like, I don't want to be homeless. And so the husband is like, the wife's like, let's move him into the basement. And the husband's like, that's my man cave. And the wife is like, what? It's not like we can turn it into a bedroom for him, yada yada, just for a while. And the husband's like, why can't he go live with his sister across the country? And she's like, well, I still want my dad to be around. So for this one, here's what's interesting. So when my dad got sick, and I said to my wife, we live in a different country, and I said, listen, my dad's got a situation. He's gonna have to go da da da. And she goes, oh, when's he moving in? I was like, what? She's like, she assumed that we would just take care of him. And he's
This conversation was leading to
I
him
was
moving
like,
in. Of course it
what?
was.
That's
That's
not
what she
what
would
he
do in her
wanted. It
culture.
wasn't. we live in a house with a lot of stairs. There's a lot of complexity. Like her thought was the exact opposite of this guy's, right? Which is like,
Yeah.
and we did offer.
Mine was too. My wife's father
Same.
wasn't broke. He was financially fine, but he was old and he needed help. And I said, "Oh, it's fine. Move in, absolutely." And we started planning to he'll live here and we'll get the bars
Yeah.
put on the shower stall and we'll get the. But he wouldn't do it. He wouldn't do it. But I wanted him to because I want, she
That's how I
wanted it
ended
and I
up
wanted what she
actually as a
wanted.
kid, living in the basement of my parents' house. They built out a bedroom in the basement for my dad's
Oh,
stepdad to come live with us long after my dad's mom died. But
Oh.
he ended up not coming. But so I think that, I mean, in my opinion, and I understand this guy being like, it's my one.
you had your own basement. That's pretty cool.
The question is, what's the rest of the house like? So if this guy feels like the rest of the house sucks, I have one room that I like, I get it. So he has a different problem. The problem with a man cave, it usually means that the rest of the house sucks, that your wife has taken over and made everything flowers and doilies, and you don't like the rest of the house. So
Yeah. Yeah, that's your
what you have to
part.
do
And
is
the
say,
rest is
you have to say
hers,
is like,
and
listen,
whatever she does, I don't.
he can move in down there, but that means I'm setting up my drums in our bedroom, right? She has to make a sacrifice as well.
Yeah.
Say, listen, if you're going to do
That's right.
this, then I need a part of the house that's still mine. I had this friend who was very wealthy, and he said, as long as I have
Yeah, that makes
a
sense.
corner of the bedroom where I have my computer and I have my own air conditioner, I'm happy. And I was like, that wasn't, he let this wife move in like 30 family members. I was like, that's the most insane thing I've ever heard. It's not even, he didn't even want his own whole room. He just wanted like space
Yeah.
to play video games.
Although maybe he enjoyed having all the people around,
Yeah, but
the
moving,
excitement and the
to
camaraderie.
not
I mean,
even
there could
want
be a
your
lot of
own
benefits
whole
to that.
room.
It's kind of
He
nice.
didn't even want a
really.
whole room. He just like, I just need a corner of a room. Like that. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think that this guy,
See, I only want my own room and my own bathroom. That's all I want. My own room and my own bathroom. Not too much to ask. I mean, I think the problem is too that if a guy is broke and he has to move in, that's a different story. I think that's an important
yeah,
point here
I
too.
mean,
Don't you think?
it's, but
I mean,
so what's the
financially,
difference between he's poor and he's sick and we have to take care of
there's
him?
because it's not because you feel like he's poor dad. You made bad decisions. You wasted all your money on drugs, or you went to the track and lost all your money, or you didn't take that promotion
his
you could
fault.
have, or there's
Yeah,
a lot of resentments around this because it's his fault. That's right.
It's a tough situation, but you have to think about, well, what's the price? You think your wife will ever forgive you for saying, hey, I want your father out of your life forever?
Or it could ruin their marriage. It could just ruin it. It could be like this guy's really overbearing and awful. And he comes in to live in the house and it's never the same. And this
Yeah, the danger
husband just
is that it sounds like
hates
the
his
dad
life.
is healthy, so he could be there for another 40 years. You could be taking care of this guy until you're 80.
Yeah. Yeah, turning that off, shutting it off is difficult. It's like I help family members by giving them cash every
Oh my
month.
gosh.
And then I've realized I really can't stop doing that because what would they do?
Yeah,
So I'm kind of
that's
stuck.
that br-
All right. So, um, when I dated online, okay, when I was dating online before, this was about a few years ago, I had matches, I had dates, everything was crappy. These women were single for a reason, it turns out. But anyway, I kind of decided recently to go back to it. He says, but there's like issues like politics intruding on the apps. He says the apps removed race filters. He says due to activists to injection of pronouns. Not sure what that means exactly. It was so disgusting I uninstalled and canceled the date the same day. Okay, and I'm not going to use dating apps anymore. What is he talking about? Do you understand what he's saying about removal of race
Yes.
filters due to activists
So I'll
to
give you an
injection
example of this.
pronouns?
So on Tinder, there you are not allowed to put that you're a transgender. So I happen to live in Asia, and in Asian dating apps,
Oh.
there's usually M, F, or T. So in Asia, people will,
Okay.
if you ask someone, hey, are you a real man or a real woman, they'll tell you. It's not a big deal. It's very common. It comes up all the time here. Okay. All the time, people just ask you. It's not a big deal to say, are you, and if they're trans, they'll just say, oh no, I'm not a real woman. And in the West, there's this idea of, I am a real woman, right? You'll say,
Identify
yeah,
as a woman. You
and
better call me a
I
woman.
saw like So that's what he's talking about. And that is like, I can't, and it's
Okay.
what's really confusing. I saw someone get
That's
in trouble
lame.
yesterday because they were a woman who transitioned and gay men weren't attracted to, I can't remember, I got confused by the pronouns, but a person who had lady parts,
Okay,
but
so the
still has
woman who
lady
becomes a
parts, but
man
has a
and
beard.
claims
And they were like,
she's now
they're
a
on a gay
man,
dating app. Like, why is no one matching me?
and she wants men, she
And it's
likes
like,
men,
well,
but the men don't like her, him,
the
whatever.
whole
Okay.
thing about gay men is that they like, their favorite part is the penis, right? That's the thing you like. That's the thing that makes you the
Mm-hmm.
gayest, right? So it's getting really confusing. I had a
Mm-hmm.
lot of trouble doing the math on that one, trying to understand what the problem was, because I was like, what's because it just gets very confusing. So the racial thing, I don't know about that. They're saying like I don't want to date certain races or whatever.
Well, I understand what he's talking about politics. He says, because I'll tell you what I was thinking. Politics in the apps, I mean, I can understand it. You just have to be a little bit, work around. I mean, just like you said, maybe ask somebody if there's a doubt or, there's a way you can ask. I don't mean to offend you,
Yeah.
just making sure whatever you want to do. But also, I was thinking he meant like people say, "Oh, I'm for Trump," or I hate Trump, or whatever. Like that's part of dating
Yeah.
now, which I believe it could be, because I think people are really absorbed into politics, and it could really intrude on this experience of just
So
meeting
I would
somebody.
never want to date someone who politics is a large part of their personality. It's not the political party.
Yeah, yeah. That's a good point. It's kind of like if somebody's super religious, right? I'm not like I'm against religion, but somebody who's like very Orthodox Jewish, Muslim, Christian, if you're not religious, you
Yeah.
might believe in
So
God, but you're not religious. It's
that's why
weird.
there's
Like, how could you
dating
get along with
websites for
somebody?
specifically for religions and religious people. They have all those, but I think that yeah,
Yeah,
the whole thing now
yeah,
is that politics is getting bigger and bigger, and it's so uninteresting to me. It's why I left the country. I just don't want to participate because people who are really into politics tend to be really awful. So whenever I look at Facebook now, Facebook is like a place where everyone can tell you the political opinion you didn't ask about. It's like, have you ever met a vegan who didn't tell
yeah.
you? And it's why
Never.
it's and that's where that
There's
joke comes from.
jokes
It's the
about
same
that.
thing as like, well, you don't. That's why you don't want to hang out with a vegan unless you're put up with it. And you don't want to hang out with someone who's an MLM because they're always going to tell you about it, right? They're always like, oh, I want to come to this thing and do this, like. So you pull back from that. So if that's what he's talking about, I mean, at the end of the day, I think apps is the worst approach to dating. I think it's the worst way to do it because you get a wrong read. So when I was
Yeah.
on eHarmony in my early 30s, the matches they gave me were all at least 10 years older than me and at least 100 pounds heavier. Every woman was over 300 pounds and over 40 years old. And I was like, I'm 30. What is happening here? So,
So
and then
eHarmony,
all it
you
does is
fill
hurt
out
your
about a
feelings.
zillion questions,
They give you 7
and then they
matches a
give you
day and
matches.
it's all like all of our science is Garrett, you're going to find your wife. And it's like, if you want to get really
As opposed to
depressed,
other systems where you just look
and
around and
the way those
yeah,
systems
okay,
work, and I like the science of them. So 80% of men um, never get a swipe, you get zero. So like, I think it's 80% of
right,
women are swiping on
right.
5% of men.
And that's true of eHarmony though, because it's supposed to
Yeah,
eliminate
eHarmony,
that
what eHarmony does is
popularity
just match you
contest.
with people that are so unattractive that you just want to kill yourself. So that was my experience. Well,
Well, then
that's
why
why
would
I
that be a good
canceled my
business model
membership.
for them?
So I don't even know if eHarmony's still in business. This is 10 years ago. So
Hmm.
the thing about these dating sites is that a woman, no matter how rough she looks, will get 100 matches because guys, well,
Yeah,
just guys are
men love
swiping
any
a
woman,
larger number of women.
basically.
So a
Okay.
woman might like swipe right, say yes to
Yeah.
20 men out of 5,000, whereas a man will say yes to like 4,000. So what happens is you just start going, well, none of the tens are responding. I'll swipe on the nines and the eights and the sevens. So this approach to dating is not good. What it does is it gives the women a false sense of ego because they think, oh, I'm the only woman this guy swiped on. It's like, no, you're one of 5,000, right? And then the men get a really disproportionate negative ego because they, oh, no one swiped on me because all the women, it's kind of like, it's why when it looks at like the number of partners people have had, most men, the number of men who haven't had a partner in the last year is like super high. There's a super high spike in virgins now. And then there's always the one guy with a really high number. So I
Yeah.
was the first category, and now I'm the second category because once you figure it out, women want to sleep with a guy with a high body count. All women, it's the old Chris Ross joke. It's like when a guy sees you with a new girl, he goes, "Wow, I want a girlfriend just like that." And when a girl sees you with her friends with a new boyfriend, they go, "I want to sleep with him." That's what happens, is that all women go after the same guys for the small pool of men, and it kind of messes everything up. So you want to get out. The apps are where you have the worst odds. The odds are against you. You have the least chances because it's not reality. It's also where you forge the most parasocial relationships. So the best advice I can give you is to meet people in real life. It's where you can have real interactions, especially, I mean, I'm not a good looking guy. Like, let's not dance around it. It doesn't bother me. Looks is not my greatest category. It's not my strongest category. So for me, I can, and I've tested this. So I've heard a woman say about me, that guy is gross. Okay. He's physically disgusting. I talked to the woman. 20 minutes later, she says to her friend, she goes, "You know what? He's really hot." So there's a huge amount of personality. Women factor in personality a lot, and you can do a lot to be more attractive. And that all comes in person. Doing it online is very hard. So I'm not.
So basically, if you look like, 22-year-old buff guy, no problem doing apps. If you're like a normal person, you probably have more of a
Even
personality and
if
other things going for you rather than looks.
even if you
You're
have super
better
good
off in
looks, it
real
might
life.
not work out. Like, it doesn't guarantee the app. So my advice, the app, there's
Right.
tons of bad psychiatry that come out of the app. So like, it damages people, it causes tons of problems, it causes tons of parasocial interaction, it causes a tons of ED problems, it
Right.
causes tons of all sorts of stuff. The apps have really become, and nobody who's on the apps likes it. Nobody says, "Oh, I'm loving being on the apps," because you end up with a lot of negative interaction. So the best thing I can say is that be the person who's not. I never found success on the apps, and my number is way too high for what I look like. Okay. My body count is way higher than whatever you think it is right now. So
Well, I had to learn. I had to learn dating. I learned it from a friend who was older who mentored me, and I learned to pick up women in all sorts of situations. And that's how I met girls, and worked out great. There just wasn't any option. They have this thing where you could go and get videos made of yourself, and then women would look at all the videos and pick guys and go out on dates. There's all sorts of things. They have this service where you can have a matchmaker fix you up. I mean, there's things you could do. If you have a lot of money and you don't want to go dating and everything, you can delegate this to someone else and they can
yeah,
connect you with potential matches. But for most normal people, you're better off just going on meeting girls and chatting them up and
yeah,
just
I
building your
think that
skills.
we have discounted how much value there is in just getting to know people and connecting with people in real life. It's hard. I don't want to pretend that
Yeah,
it's not
yeah,
hard.
that's
Meeting
right.
women in person is really scary, but it's the only way. It's the only way. There's no other way to do it. There's no other way to break through because you have to eventually meet in person, right? So there's
Yeah, you
there's a
have to.
way of starting a conversation that is meaningless. Example, do you know what time it is? That's not a flirtatious conversation starter, right? It's the less flirtatious the more challenging the
Transactional.
transition. So you then have to really fight through flirt to get to a flirtation. Whereas if you start with, "Sorry, you're so beautiful, I had to say hi," which is super flirtatious, you're already in a flirtation, right? So the same way, if you start with online dating, you actually have so much more to overcome. And this is why I really don't like long distance relationship. I really don't like texting because there's
Right,
nothing, you meet someone
right.
in person for the first time and they've know all your secrets. They've already seen you naked. What a nightmare. So uncomfortable.
By the way, texting, that's optional. You can have a thing on your phone now where you turn it off where they don't show you naked.
I know it's a joke, but I'm not sure I get it. I might be too dumb.
Well, no, because you said they've already seen you naked because you're texting or whatever. I'm saying that that's not inevitable. That you don't
Yeah, but
text
I'm just
somebody
saying a
necessarily to
lot.
have naked
It's
pictures
all part of the
exchanged.
same
That's my
mistake. It's the
point.
same thing. Like, so where you give someone your Instagram and then they can see
Okay.
all of the pictures you have of like your butt and your bikinis and stuff. So I never do that. In my age, it was give someone your Facebook. I would never do that because when a woman sees my Facebook, I never hear from her again. Like it's like the kiss of death for me in a relationship. So I always only photos.
Hey, what do you think about sending a woman a website link to an award that you won from your company for being like the, you know, top executive in the year or something like that? What about something like that?
Women don't care about that, so it's not going to work.
They don't care about that, but they kind of do because they want to go with someone who's accomplished and who's authoritative and has power in the world. And that's my point. Not that they care about the specifics, but they do care a great deal that a guy has the respect of other people and that he's a mover and a shaker. That's very attractive to women.
Yeah, but it's still a weird thing to send on a first interaction. Like, oh, I don't.
Yeah, I agree, but yeah, you know, it's sort of like a resume. Like, you know, was the leader in meeting quota for 3 years in a row in the Western region, and you know, whatever. Like, yeah, that's sort of a little too detailed. But my point is that if you have other accomplishments, maybe you can sort of weave those in, and women will, you know, get an idea of your of attraction for somebody because you're not just some dweeb. That's my point. You've got to use whatever you have going for you. It's usually not looks, it's personality and accomplishments. So we have one more here. Do you want to ask the
I'm
last
embarrassed to bring
question?
my boyfriend over because I'm poor. I don't want him to find out that I live in a trailer because it looks bad on the outside, even though it's nice on the inside. I live with my grandma. Oh, what do I do?
Right. Okay. Well, that's a great question. So, my answer is, if it's clean inside, in other words, like if you give someone a glass of water, like they drink from it because they're not like, ugh, you know, if it's clean, you're fine. Man doesn't care about a woman living in poverty. It's absolutely fine with that. Absolutely no problem. That's why you have these fairy tales, you know, but they're true and
You
also in
never,
life. Um, you
you
know,
never hear the fairy tale about
it doesn't matter.
the
Men don't care
princess
about
falling
that.
for the poor guy and going to live in a swamp.
No, it's always the opposite. Yeah. It's
Yeah,
always
it's-
it's always the rich guy falling for the poor princess, you know, the Cinderella person. So you got
yeah,
no problem. Got no problem.
yeah. She's
Um,
fine.
yeah, exactly. And if a woman is wealthy and well off and successful and attractive, she's not going to want to go to your crappy little trailer and go, you know, she's not going to be interested in dating you probably. It
Exactly.
doesn't work the other way.
I think she's gonna be fine because guys don't care.
Yeah.
Some even prefer it.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for being here and being part of what we're doing. And see you
Bye,
next week on
everyone.
Men's Mayhem.
Stay
You have a
mayhem.
wonderful week.